So for this next discussion, I want to introduce someone who is taking the commercial real estate world by storm. Howard Lutnick is the chairman of Cantor Fitzgerald, one of the world's leading financial services firms, as well as chairman of real estate brokerage Newmark Group. Howard became a billionaire by shaking up the clubby world of Wall Street bond trading. So in recent years, Howard has been nabbing top commercial brokers left and right, the likes of Doug Harmon, Adam Spies, and he's got an increasingly entrepreneurial culture compared to the CBREs and C&Ws. He's got a war chest for opportunities ahead. And he sees real opportunities ahead, which we're going to get into in a second. But Howard also has a harrowing personal story, and we're going to start there for a second. He's best known for leading Cantor through 9/11, in which more than 650 employees died. And he survived by chance and spent the following years rebuilding Cantor. A lot of adversity, a lot of success for a kid from Long Island. And I want to welcome Howard here today. And my first question is, before we get into the opportunities in the market, which Howard has some very specific ideas there, how did we get from there to here?
Can you guys hear okay?
Can everybody hear okay?
All right. Because there's a crowd over there is happy with each other rather than me. I'm not used to that, you know?
Yeah.
My ego doesn't really take well to that kind of stuff. So, look, our firm was located on the 101st to the 105th floors of the World Trade Center. And we rented that space in the early 70s, right, when the building was new, at $8 a foot. So we had the top floors at $8 a foot, and with escalations, it was all the way up to $14 a foot on 9/11. So this was the greatest space in the world with the most gorgeous, what I call democratic views, which meant it didn't matter whether you were looking at the Statue of Liberty or down at Manhattan, it was glorious. And so our firm was there. Now, we had a rule at the firm, we only wanted to work with people that we like. That was the rule that I said at the company. I said, look, we all have the same rainbow of friends. So we have the ones on the right side, smart, capable. Think of your friends. Now think of the ones on the left that make you laugh in a bar harder than anybody else, a little crazy, a little out there. I said, let's just hire the ones on the right. And so the whole firm hired their brothers-in-law and their best friend from college, everybody. And that was the firm that was on the top of the World Trade Center on 9/11. We lost 658 of our 960 employees. I'm here because I was taking my son to his first day of kindergarten that morning. And that's the only reason I get to tell this story. So I was up on 90th Street. I went right to the building. And I was standing at the door of One World Trade Center when two World Trade Center collapsed. Again, another reason why I'm here. So we set out to rebuild the company, but I announced we were going to give 25% to everything that we made to the families of those we lost. Okay, but 25% of a crushed company is not going to result in much. So that's what we announced, but what really happened is every one of our employees agreed to give 25% of their payroll to the families. So everybody who joined agreed to make 25% less for 5 years, and we sent the money to the families. And so my employees and I, we gave the families $180 million over those 5 years. So it was vital that we rebuild the company and to take care of the families. So we set out to rebuild the company. In 2005, I stopped crying, by the way. First day I didn't cry, October 21st, 2004.
Wow.
2-3 years of crying because you just can't process all that loss. Rebuilt the company, started hiring thousands of people in 2005, thousands of people in 2006. So where we are today, 13,000 global employees, 5,000 in New York. The whole group globally did just under $9 billion in revenues last year. And this is from a company, we had 2,000 after 9/11, lost 658 out of my 960 New York employees. And then we had bosses without, we had secretaries without bosses, and we got down to about 150 people in New York, so now 5,000. So we've rebuilt the company. We took care of the families. I have an offer to employ the children of anybody whose parent died. I've employed about 170 of them. I have 36 working for me now, still, years and years later, working at the firm.
Well, I think that really sets the scene, and I know that legacy lives with you these days in big ways and small. I know you're on the second floor of your office building now. I mean, there's a trauma that lives with you, and obviously you persevered through that and built just a ginormous company, got into real estate back in 2011 with the purchase of Newmark, went public 2017, 2018, and part of this conglomerate now is real estate, right? You've been talking on Fox Business recently, CNBC, a lot of different places. You think there are major opportunities ahead, and I think you know how to spot an opportunity in terms of the distressed assets coming down the pike and what that means for real estate services firms. You want to talk about that for a sec?
Sure. So we went into real estate because in the financial crisis, interest rates were manufactured at zero. And what is the greatest asset class in the world that likes low interest rates for really, really long periods of time? Because let me tell you something, the bond business when interest rates are zero is really boring. There's nothing to trade. So we bought Newmark, closed in 2011 because this is the greatest asset class that likes low interest rates. And we started building Newmark, and we invested more than $1 billion in Newmark over those years to build it great. But now interest rates are back, and interest rates are higher. Okay, and what you learn is you learn the bond business. So a building is a long-term asset, right? And long-term assets get pummeled when interest rates go from 0 to 5. Or another way to think about it is if you bought a building at a 5 cap and now interest rates are a 7 cap, that's 40%. It's not that hard to figure out. If your value has declined 40%, it's going to be horrific. So let's see the core. $1 trillion of commercial real estate loans are going to mature this year, 2024. $500 billion in 2025 and $500 billion in 2026. 1/3 of those $2 trillion are so underwater they're going to go back to the lender, and the lender's going to resell them. 1/3, okay, are just, they need a recap, right? They need help, some equity. The owners will work it out with other people, bring in some more equity, they'll figure it out. And 1/3 just need to find a new lender, because you call your traditional lender, and the traditional lender says, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And so the business of services of real estate are going to be fire, because you need to sell buildings,
right?
You need to finance buildings, right? And then what happens is when the price of the building resets, leasing, where they're trying to lease a floor in my building for $100 a foot, and it's been available for 2 years,
Yeah.
right? If it was repriced and they were offering it at $68 a foot, it'd be gone in a minute. So leasing is coming back. So I think the opportunity to buy real estate correctly, and here's a thought for you. All money is made on the buy. Selling it at the right time, okay, that's lucky, right? Oh, I knew it. I sold in early 22. Like if you waited till late 22, right? So that's not a thing. So this is the opportunity, 25, 26, the greatest opportunity to buy real estate correctly that you will get in your generation. This is it. So new money is going to be great. Services are going to be amazing.
And you called it a generational change in wealth, essentially. Why are the banks no longer extending and pretending at this point? Is that part of the equation?
Well, what happens to a bank is if one loan defaults, I'll work it out with the sponsor, okay? If 2 loans default, I'll work it out. If 12 loans default, I'm talking to my boss. And if 35 loans default, WTF.
Yeah.
Okay? I can't hold these on my books. All right. There are 4,000 banks in America. 4,000. Here's a quiz. How many when this is over? The big banks, all the ones whose names you know, they've underwritten it correctly, and they have more than enough capital. They're going to be fine. It's all the regional banks who thought they were doing their community work, their community service. They have 35, 45% of their capital in commercial real estate loans. When they get back that 1/3, bye-bye.
Yeah.
So I think the least would be 500 gone, and the most 1,000 gone. So you know what we saw like Republic First last week? That you're going to start seeing that in 25 and 26. Every single weekend, a regional bank whose name you probably don't know is going to go bye-bye. The big ones are not going anywhere. They have power, they have capacity, they're smart, they know what they're doing, and they have scale. But the little guys, we're going to go from 4,000 banks to 3,000 banks. They're going to need to sell everything. The FDIC is going to sell everything. And that's how the world's going to go. 25 and 26, it's coming. And I know there are owners, like Blackstone said the other day, you know, they are long $600 billion. If you were long $600 billion, what would you say? I'd say we're hitting the bottom right now.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you don't own it, what would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not close to the bottom.
That's crazy. So, I mean, is this on the level of, you have 500 bank failures, that's on the level of the S&L crisis or something like that? I mean, is that a major, I mean, are we in for really rough waters more broadly economically if that happens?
You know, the world of banks has gotten so much better, that as long as the big guys stand strong, okay, we're not going anywhere, right? So this is a regional crisis. It's a small bank crisis. They're all too small. So they're all going to merge up. Yeah. There won't be that many deals like Signature Bank where we get to liquidate them. There'll be some, and that's good for the service business. You know, somebody's happy when you got to do the work. But the moral of the story is the banks that default are not the banks you know in New York. They're like, but you know, New York Community Bank needed a recap.
Yeah.
Right? Steve Mnuchin came in and recapped it. You get it. So there's either going to be a recap for someone big and strong like the New York Community Bank, but they're going to be the smaller ones that just get like big fish eat small fish, right?
Yeah.
And there'll be 1,000 less banks at the end of 27. And that, it's not going to matter to this room a lot, but it'll matter in regional America.
Yeah. So how do you set up Newmark for this? Obviously, we talked about the different lines of business, you know, the building sales brokerage, debt brokerage, leasing the office. I mean, you've created kind of a culture there, and I want to hear you characterize it. That's a little different than CBRE or C&W. You got a war chest of $850 million. I think Cushman's got a debt of $3 billion. Like, how are you positioning, what are you setting up kind of institutionally or infrastructure-wise to pounce on that growth?
Okay, so we are a talent-first organization. That's who we are. So we hired the #1 producer from CBRE, and when that producer left, CBRE put out a statement that said, our platform is more important than any person. Sensible comment for a corporate straitjacket, okay? But to me, we put out our statement that says our people are our platform. That is who our platform is. Our platform is built on the shoulders of our people. That's who provides a service. That's who does our work. And so we are a magnet for all stars. Now, 2023 was a tough year. 2024 is going to be a tough year. I believe in the Wayne Gretzky theory, which is don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going, right? I think the world of services in 2025 and 2026 is going to be so hot, so busy, so insane that I'm trying to hire all the talent we possibly can. The difference between us, who's spending money on talent like it's going out of style, versus other guys who have hiring freeze, salary freeze. Business is tough, but today it's tough. No doubt last year was tough, today is tough, but I know where it's going in our opinion. And in our opinion, the services business is fire.
Can you take me inside how you're doing the recruiting process? Like, did Doug Harmon wake up, top investment sales broker in New York, along with Adam Spies, find a Ferrari on his front door? Or, you're a charismatic guy, and I'm sure you and Barry Gossin, the CEO of Newmark alone, can do a lot of convincing. But how do you get these guys on board?
So if you start with the thesis we just talked about, where, I'm trying to recruit you, and I say, we want you because we want to build a business around you, not I want you to plug you into my thing and you're just a cog in my wheel. We want to build, we want to grow, we're going to invest, we're going to just create value around it. And so look what happened. They join us in February, right? And something like 6 weeks later, Signature Bank goes down, right? They sell pieces to banks, and then they need to liquidate all the real estate loans, $60 billion in real estate loans. But now we have the best talent in the world, and, which Cushman didn't have, every license with the government to do business with them. So we have pre-existing every license. So they come in, the greatest talent, coupled with the greatest license, and we win the business because we were set up to do everything in the beginning. And if you don't have the greatest talent, you don't win. And if you don't have the licenses, you don't win. It's the combination of everything. And someone asked me, which I thought was humorous, did you know Signature Bank was going to go down? That's why you hired Harmon and Spies? I'm like, no. How ridiculous is that? Yeah, sure, I know. What a load.
That's
really
really
ask that silly question. Come on.
Well, that loan sale, $60 billion, biggest loan sale of its size ever. Can you give us any? Oh, first of all, what's the commission on something like that? 6%?
It keeps me in the style to which I've grown accustomed.
Well, can you give any other color on that? I thought one interesting thing somebody was telling me was, it sounded like that deal had such brain damage on it. Like, the FDIC was so protective about exposing the loan documents that you could only look at the screen. You couldn't download any information. So you had teams in India, hundreds of people writing down all the deal details and then inputting it so you guys could actually make sense of what $60 billion in loans looks like. Was it just a super complicated process?
Okay, that sounds silly. Okay, I want to be clear. There was nothing about the government in the FDIC transaction that was silly. Nothing. They protected all the banks. They came out that weekend and protected everybody. That was a brilliant move, right, by Treasury. It was brilliant. It created stability where there were going to be other banks going. They are thoughtful. They understood how to do it. We had hundreds and hundreds of bidders, right? They selected which bidders they wanted, how they wanted, what outcome they wanted. They got outcomes far, far better than they ever thought. 400 of world-class bidders coming in and bidding for their loans. It was done professionally, processed brilliantly by the FDIC, brilliantly by the Newmark team. I think everybody who participated, the 400 bidders, felt that it was professional. They had all the information they needed. They knew what to come up with. The FDIC chose their right partners for them because they wanted affordable housing experts, and they thought it through carefully. And I am proud of our government. Yeah. I'm proud of our team. I'm proud of Treasury, the way they moved. Okay, I thought the whole process was first class, and that you would say is rare, but I got a clear view into the FDIC and a clear view into the thoughtful government of the United States, and I was proud of them, and we all were proud of them because the outcome, right, was as good for the government as it could have possibly been.
I guess to look at it from a more skeptical or cynical point of view, there wasn't a lot of bad headlines that went on about it, so that's an accomplishment. I want to ask too. Hey, it's you could hit a lot of speed bumps with that, I just want to ask a follow-up question about the culture at Newmark. Like a little bit more of your philosophy there. Like you have you work in a bullpen. There's a kind of a flat organizational structure. It's, there's probably a lot of ego clashing too, when you set up a structure like that, right? Is that kind of built into your, I don't know, corporate philosophy of how you create these all-star teams? Kind of.
So the model at most service firms is that you go to the boss and you have to pitch whether you're allowed to pitch the client. That's the model. And it's very crowded. The way Newmark works is everybody who can help win the business is on the team. It's a collective team rather than an exclusionary team. It's a type of thinking that brings bigger and bigger teams together, because whoever can help win the business, provide service for the client, gets included. Number two, no bosses get paid any money from a deal. No bosses.
Got it.
Because if the boss, let's say I'm the boss and I can get a commission, I put my name on everybody's feet, and I become a tax. That is exactly how my competitors work. Whereas our leadership, anybody associated gets no money. They're my partner, they're not yours. So the brokers make all the money. And I'll give you an example. I bring in a piece of business. Me. It's like my account. I bring in a piece of business. I pay the broker full pay. No house account, no bullshit that I take 20% of the money. We pay our brokers because they are the pillar of the company. They are the company. And if they're more productive, we're more productive.
Yeah. I just think you create a more, interesting culture that way too, and it's just so much more dynamic. I want to kind of zoom even farther out and talk about real estate in general. You've been a pioneer in the financial services industry in the 90s. You helped transform the bond market with eSpeed, which was the electronic trading platform for treasuries. Right now, you got a new market for interest rate futures. You're battling against the exchange giant CME. Like, can you bring something similarly transformative to real estate, or what would that look like? Because it seems like you're well poised to do that, and real estate is just such a backwards, obtuse. There's so much that should be done in real estate to create more of a unified asset class in some ways.
Well, the thing about real estate that makes it most exciting is that the building on that side of the street is just not the same building as the one on this side of the street, and the one on that side of the tracks is not the same as this side of the tracks. Okay, one of the things we do for our clients is we can help their diligence, right? They call our asset and valuation group, and they say quickly, this address. And if you tell them it's on the wrong side of the block, right, and it's just not going to have the same foot traffic, it saves people a world of difference. So the thing about real estate is local knowledge and market knowledge are demonstrably better. That's why the crowd can be big, because that local knowledge and that specific knowledge is incredibly valuable. So do I think there are macros to change? With certainty. Are we going to bring it? With certainty. Is it going to displace people who have that knowledge? NFW.
Yeah. But doesn't it blow your mind that there's not even like one central listing platform for commercial real estate where people buy and sell like a MLS equivalent? It's not necessarily a bad thing for brokerage, because you have, that local knowledge is even more important, or, you kind of benefit from that as a broker conceivably. But if you could build a platform that could do all those things or incorporate that, it just seems like that would be game changing.
Well, look, I have lots of thoughts on the topic, but that's not done in art either. And art is simpler than real estate, which has tenants and how much capital it needs and what position it's in, and there are so many factors of real estate. So I think the answer is there's massive technology to bring to real estate, and I think Newmark's going to bring it, but it's not tomorrow. Tomorrow is 25 and 26, which are going to be an amazing opportunity to buy real estate a necessity to raise capital. So if you have dry powder, wait. Just wait. Your singles and doubles are going to become triples and home runs. Just give it 6 months and it's coming, or buy it right today. But I think starting 27 and 28, you're going to start seeing really cool tech coming out of Newmark. And what it's going to do is think RoboCop. Don't think, displacement. Think wrapping our most talented people with so much tech, so much ammo, so much capacity that they bring so much knowledge to the transaction that talking to them and relying upon them will put them heads and shoulders above everywhere else. That's where we're going to invest our dollars, arming our rock stars to be better.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's one thing we want to think about today. It's 25, 26. There's going to be real opportunities. And I want to talk about that, in view of like where the city is going, because that's a lot of distress. You harken back to 9/11, but maybe more pertinent, the Great Recession. Like, what do you think that means for the city? Where does the city need to head now? You have such a good vantage point from your years.
Okay. So the crisis in '08 unleashed manufactured zero interest rates, which covered everything. Like my building, the one we're in, went from 240 million, traded at 400 million, traded at 600 million, and my rent stayed the same, right? That's just rates coming down and the value skyrocketing against rates. When rates go back up, okay, now we're gonna, like Warren Buffett said, when the water goes out, we see how people are dressed, whether what they're wearing or not. So the water's now gone out. What you're gonna see is A buildings, and top-rated A buildings are killing it.
Yeah.
Because if I want my staff to come to work, I got to give them a beautiful environment to come back to. So A buildings killing it. Low A, still thumbs up. B is going to be challenged, but B bought correctly and priced correctly will bring in tenants. And C is ta-ta. Okay, so now what are we going to do with C? Right? Resi conversion, but resi conversion requires governmental assistance. Now, all of you are thinking, how am I going to get governmental assistance? I have no idea how we're going to get government assistance from the government we have, because do they love the real estate community? I haven't felt the love.
No.
I feel like, what's the term? The opposite of love.
Yeah.
Right? So I think C buildings are going to be challenged. You need to figure out something about it. It may be co-working. It may be resi. You got to do work. But if you buy it right and you have thought to it, you'll be able to do it. But A is great. B needs to be purchased right. Hard discount, cheap. You're going to have to do a shed load of work to make it accessible. And C, you got to have new thoughts, completely new thoughts, which, by the way, are always what builds. Just remember, there was no such thing as a loft in New York in 1956. No such thing. This was light downtown manufacturing, right? Remember, people brought in stuff and they sewed it together downtown. And then J51, right, they came up with the concept of a loft. And all of a sudden, we're all like, hey, I'll live in Tribeca. That sounds cool, right? That didn't exist. So people are going to figure out C buildings, and they're going, I'm telling you, 10 years from today, we'll be talking about a new word. It's not a loft. I don't know what it is, but someone in this audience who's really friggin' smart is going to have a good idea. They're going to do it twice, and then 500 other people in this room are going to copy the hell out of them, and all of a sudden it's going to become much, much better. So never deny the capacity of smart New Yorkers to do really, really cool things and make the world better.
Right. That's a cool idea. Just a whole new asset class. And you touched on government for a second. I did an interview with Dan Doctoroff a couple weeks ago, and it's like, reminded me during the Bloomberg era, we had all these smart business people who were in government. Like, you think that's what it takes? And I know you floated running for mayor in passing in 2014. Would you ever get into government? What do you think?
No. So I think we need smart government officials who have objectives and outcomes to fix the things that are broken in New York. C buildings are not yet broken, so the government doesn't see them as blighted or not. You know, you see it in a couple of these gateway cities where they've lost the loop, right? And the loop is just broken and it's going desolate, right? And so they need to do something, and they need to figure out what to do, and they turn it into multi-level restaurants. They turn it into all sorts of things. There's always interesting things that people can do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're turning malls into pickleball.
Right.
Right? I mean, you know, so there's a way to think outside the box that people can do to be creative, but we will need that government. It just doesn't need to be today because it's not ripe yet. It's like a pear that's really hard. Okay? We know where it's going, but it's just not there today. I think it'll get there. I think we're going to need a lot of governmental help on C buildings, but that is not this administration, and it's probably not the next one, but it's probably 10 years from today. We're going to need really, really smart government to unleash the opportunity that we just discussed in New York.
Yeah. Well, I think it's safe to say, you know, you have incredible persistence. You've been the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald for 40 years, which is crazy.
I can hold a job.
That's job stability. And I like to ask this of every billionaire we have on stage. You know, as a self-made guy, is there anybody that tells you no?
I wouldn't know. I don't spend any time with them.
All right. Well,
look, if you don't surround yourself with people who can challenge you, right, then all you're left with is alone.
Yeah.
You need talented people who surround you, who are not afraid to express their opinion because they just make you better. And you argue and you fight. You can tell you've only spent a half hour with me, but I'm not afraid to talk, and I'm not afraid to fight it. So you need to be smart and thoughtful to stand toe-to-toe with me and have it out. But in the end, if you do that, you're just going to be better. So don't be afraid if your opinions are strong. Don't be afraid to express them. But you got to, both while you're talking, you also have to listen. And those are two things that don't often go together.
Right. Well, it's like may the best idea win. So we'll see what's ahead in the next couple of years. Really good preview from Howard. And I want to thank you so much for coming out here today. It was great. Thanks, everybody.